The arrival. Dr. Sarah Blackwood squinted at the monitor inside the small observatory perched on Hawaii's Mauna Kea. The 3 a.m. shift was usually quiet, but tonight something unusual had appeared on their deep space monitoring system. "Hey Raj, can you check if we're getting some kind of interference?" She called to her colleague across the room. Rajesh Patel looked up from his own terminal. "What are you seeing?" "These readings don't make sense. I'm picking up a massive object." "No, multiple objects, approaching from beyond Mars' orbit. They're moving too fast and changing trajectory too precisely to be asteroids." Raj hurried over, his coffee forgotten. "That's impossible. There's nothing on the scheduled satellite or debris tracking." Sarah's hands flew across the keyboard, confirming the readings through multiple systems. "This isn't a glitch. Something's coming." Within hours, observatories around the world had confirmed their findings. A fleet of unknown objects was approaching Earth at frightening speed, having somehow remained undetected until they crossed Mars' orbit. The objects didn't match any known spacecraft signatures, and attempts at communication received no response. 3 days later, humanity could no longer deny the truth. We were not alone, and our visitors had not come in peace. The first attacks targeted major communication centers and military installations. Massive ships, each nearly a mile long with gleaming copper-colored hulls, positioned themselves in low Earth orbit. Smaller craft descended through the atmosphere, immune to desperate missile attacks that simply dissolved against their shimmering energy shields. The world watched in horror as Washington, D.C., Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi were simultaneously hit with precision energy weapons that vaporized government buildings while leaving surrounding structures eerily intact. The message was clear: surrender or be systematically destroyed. In a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, what remained of the United States leadership assembled an emergency response team. Among them was Dr. Elena Reyes, one of the country's foremost xenobiologists, though until now her work had been purely theoretical. "They're calling themselves the Corvellians," General Hayes informed the room as footage from the first communication played on screen. The aliens' appearance was unsettling, humanoid but wrong, with elongated limbs, grayish-purple skin that seemed to shimmer with an oily iridescence, and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern across their face. "People of Earth," the alien spoke in perfect English, its mouth movements not quite matching the words. "Your planet has been selected for integration into the Corvellian collective. Your technological development has reached the threshold where you present a future threat to galactic stability. You have 2 Earth rotations to surrender all military capabilities and prepare for systematic resource extraction. Resistance will result in biological reclamation." "Biological reclamation?" asked Commander Marcus Chen, the highest-ranking military officer to survive the initial attacks. "They're going to turn us into fertilizer," Dr. Reyes translated grimly. "Classic resource acquisition invasion. They don't want our planet. They'd want what's on it. Including us," added Zoe Cooper, a quantum engineer who had been developing experimental defense systems for DRPA when the invasion began, "as raw materials." General Hayes looked at the assembled experts. "Options. Conventional weapons are useless against their shields," Commander Chen said. "We've tried everything from kinetic rounds to nuclear strikes. Nothing penetrates." "There must be something," Hayes insisted. "Some weakness we can exploit." Dr. Reyes had been studying the footage of the aliens with increasing interest. "I've noticed something. In all communications, they're wearing environmental suits. And look." She pointed to where a damaged alien craft had crash-landed outside of Sydney. As the Corvellian emerged, it immediately began convulsing before collapsing. "They can't breathe our atmosphere," Zoe realized. "Not just that," Elena continued. "The atmospheric composition is actually toxic to them. Their biology must be fundamentally different from Earth life." "How does that help us?" Hayes asked. "They're still in their ships with their shields." "Every shield has power requirements," Zoe said, her mind racing. If they're continuously filtering or blocking our atmosphere from their systems, that's an enormous energy drain. And no energy system is 100% efficient. Over the next 48 hours, as humanity's deadline for surrender approached, Elena, Marcus, and Zoe worked feverishly with a team of scientists to develop a prototype weapon that might exploit this weakness. The Corvallian shields work by creating a quantum barrier that selectively filters matter and energy, Zoe explained to General Hayes. But we've discovered that certain frequencies cause resonance patterns in their shield technology. Basically, we can create atmospheric vibrations at specific frequencies that will amplify our air's penetration through their shields. Like an opera singer shattering glass, Marcus simplified. Exactly, Elena agreed. But instead of glass, we're shattering their atmospheric protection. Their biology seems particularly vulnerable to nitrogen-oxygen mixtures, which is essentially what we breathe. The prototype was simple but elegant, a modified sonic cannon that could project the precise frequencies needed to disrupt the Corvallian shields, allowing Earth's atmosphere to penetrate their defenses. The test came as Corvallian forces began landing outside Denver, preparing for what appeared to be the start of their biological reclamation process. A single aircraft, piloted by Commander Chen himself, approached the landing zone carrying the prototype. "This is either going to work," he said over the radio, "or I'm going to be the first human turned into alien plant food." The Corvallian ships registered his approach and turned their weapon systems toward him. Marcus activated the device. For several heart-stopping seconds, nothing happened. Then, the nearest Corvallian ship's shield began to shimmer visibly, the normally smooth energy barrier rippling like disturbed water. Alarms must have sounded inside, because the ship immediately began to ascend, trying to escape the effect. But it was too late. The shield collapsed entirely, and Earth's atmosphere rushed into the craft. Through the ship's viewports, they could see the Corvallian crew convulsing, their environmental suits insufficient against the direct exposure. "It works," Marcus transmitted, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "The shields are vulnerable." As the Corvallian ship crashed to the ground, humanity had its first victory. Small, but significant. The invaders could be hurt. They could be defeated. But the battle was just beginning. The Corvallians, now aware of this vulnerability, would adapt, and humanity needed more than a single prototype to defend an entire planet. News of the successful test spread rapidly through secure channels. Across the globe, resistance cells formed, sharing the specifications for the shield-disrupting technology. The Corvallians responded by accelerating their attacks, recognizing that their expected easy conquest had become a genuine war. In London, a team of engineers created a dispersal system that could release the disruptive frequencies over wide areas. In Tokyo, scientists discovered that certain naturally occurring minerals could amplify the effect. In Brazil, a previously unknown subterranean complex was converted into a manufacturing center for thousands of portable disruptors. The Corvallians, for their part, modified their shields, but each modification required more energy, making their ships less efficient and more vulnerable to conventional attacks once the shields were compromised. A month into the invasion, humanity was bloody but unbowed. The Corvallians held several major cities and had established massive resource extraction operations that were literally mining the ground beneath people's feet. But for every resource they took, the resistance destroyed 3 of their ships. Elena, Marcus, and Zoe had been separated during an attack on their Rocky Mountain facility, each evacuated to different resistance strongholds. But their work continued, coordinated through a makeshift network of secured communications. "We need something bigger," Marcus told Elena during one of their rare video calls. "The portable disruptors are effective against individual ships, but we need to hit their orbital fleet. That's where their command structure is." "I've been working on that," Elena replied. "The atmosphere is our weapon. If we can somehow deliver our atmosphere to their ships in orbit." "That's impossible," Marcus said. "We can't exactly package air and launch it into space." "No," Elena agreed, But Zoe thinks there might be another way. She's been studying the Corvellian propulsion system. In Singapore, Zoe Cooper had indeed made a breakthrough. The Corvellian ships used a form of gravity manipulation for propulsion, creating artificial corridors through space-time that essentially pulled them toward their destination. These gravity corridors, she explained in their next secure conference, they're not just moving the ships. They're also pulling small amounts of matter along with them, including atmospheric particles. You're saying we could poison their own travel system? Marcus asked. Exactly. If we can saturate the area around their main gravity generators with our disruption frequency, every time they create a corridor, they'll be pulling our atmospheric vibrations right into their ships. It was theoretical, dangerous, and their only hope for a large-scale counterattack. But to implement it, they would need access to the Corvellians' main gravity generator, which was on their command ship in orbit. We need to get into space, Elena said simply. As Part 1 concluded, humanity was preparing for its most daring mission yet, a direct assault on the Corvellian command ship that would either break the invasion or doom Earth to complete subjugation. The counterattack. The remains of Houston Space Center had been converted into an underground resistance stronghold, where once tourists had marveled at the achievements of NASA. Now soldiers and scientists worked frantically to prepare for humanity's most ambitious counterattack. We've lost contact with the European resistance, reported communications officer Farid Hassan. The Corvellians have completely overrun Germany and are pushing into France. Elena Reyes looked up from the modified space shuttle she'd been helping to prepare. And China? Still fighting, but they've been pushed back to the western provinces. Their disruption technology is working, but the Corvellians have adapted their ground tactics. They're using some kind of atmospheric containment fields around their extraction sites. 3 months into the invasion, Earth was losing the war of attrition. The Corvellians controlled roughly 40% of the planet's surface, concentrating on areas rich in rare metals and minerals. Their massive mining operations were leaving vast, uninhabitable craters where cities and forests had once stood. We can't wait any longer, Marcus Chen said, joining them. He'd aged visibly in the past months, a long scar now running down the left side of his face from a close encounter with a Corvellian patrol. The shuttle modifications are complete. Zoe Cooper emerged from inside the craft, wiping grease from her hands. As complete as they'll ever be. We've retrofitted the cargo bay with our most powerful disruptor array. When we get close enough to their command ship, it should create a cascading failure in their atmospheric shields. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. A single modified space shuttle, hidden from Corvellian sensors by experimental cloaking technology, would approach the massive command ship in orbit. Once in position, they would activate the disruptor array, targeting the gravity generators that powered the Corvellian fleet's faster-than-light capabilities. The latest intelligence confirms our theory, Elena said, pulling up a holographic display. The Corvellians are preparing for a massive jump. They're bringing in their extraction ships from around the globe, concentrating them in orbit. They're getting ready to leave, Marcus observed, which means they've either taken what they came for, or they're preparing for the final phase, Zoe finished grimly. Biological reclamation. Total extinction of human life. Either way, this is our chance, Elena said. With their ships concentrated, we can hit their primary gravity generator. If Zoe's calculations are correct, the disruption will cascade through their entire fleet. That's still a big if, Marcus noted. Zoe shrugged. Everything about this plan is a big if, but it's the only shot we have. The mission team was small. Elena, Marcus, Zoe, and 2 experienced shuttle pilots who had survived the initial attacks on the space program. The rest of Earth's resistance forces would create diversions, launching simultaneous attacks on Corvellian ground positions to draw attention away from the shuttle launch. As final preparations were made, Dr. Avery Kim, who had been studying recovered Corvellian technology, made a disturbing discovery. I don't think Earth was their primary target, He told the mission team hours before launch. Look at these navigation charts we recovered from a downed scout ship. Their original trajectory was toward Mars. Mars? Elena frowned. There's nothing there, just dust and rocks. And ice caps, Dr. Kim said. Water ice, carbon dioxide ice. The Corvallians' home environment must be drastically different from ours. I think they were planning to terraform Mars, but something brought them to Earth instead. Whatever the reason, Marcus said, they're here now, and we need to stop them before they finish whatever they came for. The shuttle launch was timed to coincide with a massive electrical storm over the Gulf of Mexico, natural interference that would help mask their takeoff from Corvallian sensors. As they broke through the cloud cover, the view was both beautiful and horrifying. The blue-green earth spread out below them, scared with massive brown excavation sites where the Corvallians had stripped entire regions bare. And above, the Corvallian fleet, dozens of the massive copper-colored ships arranged in a precise geometric pattern around the central command vessel. Activating cloaking systems, announced Captain Rivera, the pilot. Propulsion switching to minimal emissions mode. The modified shuttle crept toward the Corvallian fleet, moving slowly to avoid detection. Every system not essential to life support or their mission was powered down. They floated in eerie silence, the only sound the breathing of the 5 humans on board. There's the gravity generator. Zoe pointed to a massive, ring-shaped structure attached to the command ship. It's even bigger than we thought. Can the disruptor still affect something that size? Marcus asked. It has to, Zoe replied simply. As they approached their target position, alerts suddenly blared throughout the shuttle. We've been spotted, Captain Rivera shouted, hands flying across the controls. Corvallian interceptors launching. Get us as close as you can to that generator, Marcus ordered. Elena, Zoe, prepare the disruptor array. The shuttle lurched as a glancing blow from a Corvallian energy weapon struck their shields, another modification based on reverse-engineered alien technology, but not designed to withstand direct hits. Shields at 60%, reported the co-pilot. One more hit like that, and we're done. Distance to target? Elena asked, strapping herself into the operator's chair for the disruptor array. 2 kilometers and closing, Rivera responded. But we've got company, interceptors on approach vector. Firing countermeasures, the co-pilot announced, deploying the shuttle's meager defensive capabilities. As Corvallian fighters swarmed toward them, Captain Rivera executed a desperate maneuver, skimming dangerously close to the command ship's hull, using it as a shield against its own fighters. We're in position, he finally announced. Any closer and we'll crash into the generator. Activating the disruptor array, Elena said, her hand steady despite the chaos around them. Frequency modulation at maximum, targeting the gravitational focal point. The array powered up, drawing energy from the shuttle's reserves. Outside, the space between the shuttle and the massive gravity generator began to shimmer visibly. It's working, Zoe whispered, watching the readings. The disruption field is penetrating their shields. For several tense moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a ripple of energy surged across the surface of the generator. Alarms must have been sounding throughout the Corvallian fleet because suddenly their attackers broke off, returning to their motherships. The gravitational readings are fluctuating wildly, Zoe reported, excitement creeping into her voice. The cascade is starting. On the command ship, the gravity generator began to pulse with unstable energy. Sections of the massive ring structure started to break apart, venting atmosphere into space. Atmosphere now saturated with the disruption frequency that made Earth's air lethal to the Corvallians. We need to get out of here, Marcus warned. When that thing goes completely, it's going to create a gravitational shockwave. Engaging emergency thrusters, Rivera confirmed, already turning the shuttle away from the disintegrating alien technology. Behind them, the gravity generator collapsed in on itself before exploding outward in a spectacular release of energy. The shockwave hit the shuttle like a physical blow, sending them tumbling through space. Stabilizing, Rivera shouted over the alarms. Hold on. When they regained control and looked back, the scene was beyond their wildest hopes. The Corvellian command ship was breaking apart, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches. More importantly, the disruption frequency had spread to the other ships in the fleet, creating a domino effect of failing shields and environmental systems. They're retreating, Marcus said in disbelief, watching as the surviving Corvellian vessels struggled to move away from Earth, many of them clearly damaged. Not retreating, Elena corrected, studying the sensor readings. They're dying. Their biological systems can't handle exposure to our atmosphere. The ships that can still move are trying to escape the contamination zone, but for many of them, it's too late. As they watched, the Corvellian fleet scattered, some ships falling into degrading orbits that would eventually burn up in Earth's atmosphere, others managing to activate damaged propulsion systems to limp away from the planet. Did we just win? Zoe asked, hardly daring to believe it. I think we did, Marcus replied, equally stunned. The return to Earth was met with cautious celebration. Reports from around the globe confirmed that without direction from their command ship, the Corvellian ground forces were in disarray. Many had abandoned their positions entirely, fleeing to extraction points only to find no ships coming to their rescue. In the weeks that followed, humanity began the long process of reclaiming their planet. The scars left by Corvellian mining operations would take generations to heal, but cities could be rebuilt, and the Earth would recover. Dr. Avery Kim continued his study of Corvellian technology, making a discovery that finally explained why the aliens had diverted from Mars to Earth. Their long-range scans detected our industrial emissions, he explained to a council of world leaders. They recognized signs of technological development and decided we posed a greater immediate threat than they had initially calculated. Mars was their original terraforming target. They intended to create a staging area within our solar system for further resource extraction. Will they come back? Asked the newly appointed Secretary General. Perhaps eventually, Elena answered. But they underestimated us once. It won't make that mistake again. And we'll be ready, Marcus added. We understand their technology now, and our own is advancing rapidly from what we've learned. Zoe had already begun implementing Corvellian propulsion concepts into new spacecraft designs. Within a decade, we'll have ships capable of reaching Mars ourselves. We can establish our own presence there, a first line of defense against any future incursions. As the meeting concluded, Elena found herself gazing out a window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the remains of the Corvellian fleet were still limping away from Earth, carrying news of their defeat to whatever distant civilization had sent them. They had come to conquer Earth but had disappeared before even reaching Mars. Humanity had faced its first contact with alien life and emerged victorious, not through superior technology or weapons, but through resilience, ingenuity, and the unique properties of the very planet they called home. The stars no longer seemed quite so distant or unreachable. Humanity had taken its first real step into a larger universe, not as conquerors, but as survivors, defenders of their home, ready to claim their place among the stars. And if the Corvellians or any other hostile force returned, they would find not an unsuspecting planet ripe for harvesting, but a united Earth prepared to fight for its existence with everything it had learned. The invasion had nearly destroyed humanity. Instead, it had made them stronger.